Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Urbanist's Lens. I'm Drew.
And I'm Andrea.
And we are so ready for another great discourse with all you urban explorers out there. You know, it's funny, I was just thinking about, you know how tough it is to just get around the city sometimes? Like this morning, I'm trying to get to the studio.
Oh, no.
So I'm on the subway, right? And I get totally crammed between this mariachi band
No way.
and a guy with an iguana.
An iguana on the subway.
Yeah. Apparently it was take your iguana to work day or something.
Only in New York, right?
Seriously. What else are you going to do? That's city life, I guess.
Yeah.
Always keeping us on our toes. But, you know, speaking of cities,
Yeah.
today we're actually heading out of New York, at least virtually, to check out some pretty major urban development happening over in Manila Bay in the Philippines.
Definitely major. We're talking about land reclamation projects that are, like, completely transforming the city's waterfront.
Yeah. It's hard to even imagine, right? We're not just talking like adding a park here or a building there. These projects are creating entire new districts.
Hundreds of hectares of land popping up where there used to be water.
Exactly. So we're gonna dive into two of the biggest projects happening right now: Manila Waterfront City and Pasay Harbor City.
Both mind-blowing in their own way.
For sure. So Andrea, let's start with Manila Waterfront City. Give us the rundown on, you know, what they're trying to do over there.
Okay, so first of all, the sheer scale of this project, like we said, hundreds of hectares. We're talking 318 hectares to be exact.
Okay, that's a big number, but
I know, right? It's hard to wrap your head around. It's basically like taking almost 800 football fields.
whoa, 800.
Yep. And squeezing them all together.
All right, that is a lot of space. So what are they putting on all that newly created land?
Well, they're aiming to create a brand new, like, super modern financial center. Think central business district, a marina, areas for health and education, entertainment, the whole shebang.
Wow, so it's like they're building a whole new mini city right on the waterfront.
Pretty much like a city within a city.
That's ambitious. Who's behind all of this?
So it's actually a joint venture between the Manila city government and a private developer, Waterfront Manila Premier Development, Inc.
Okay, so public and private sectors teaming up.
Exactly. They got the official go-ahead back in 2021. Construction started in 2023.
So it's all happening right now.
Full speed ahead.
That's crazy. From green light to actually breaking ground in, what, less than 2 years?
Yeah, fast-tracked for sure.
Wow. Okay, well, let's move on to our second mega project, Pasay Harbor City. This one's got a different vibe, right?
It does. So with Pasay Harbor City, it's not just about, like, adding more space. They're really focused on integrating the new development into the existing city.
Interesting. So how are they doing that?
Well, they're reclaiming, let me check my notes, 265 hectares this time.
Still a massive amount of land.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they're dividing it all up into 7 distinct districts, each one with its own purpose and, you know, a different look and feel.
Okay, hold on. 7 districts. That's a lot to keep track of. So what kind of districts are we talking?
Well, imagine like a high-rise residential district right on the water, then maybe a bustling commercial area, lots of shops and restaurants, maybe even a dedicated cultural district for, you know, museums, theaters, things like that.
Makes sense. So each district kind of has its own personality, its own, I don't know, its own flavor.
Yeah, exactly. And they're actually calling it the Manhattan of Manila Bay.
The Manhattan of Manila Bay. Bold statement. So who's in charge of this one?
This time it's the Pasay City government partnering with the Pasay Harbor City Corporation. They're the main players.
Okay, got it. And when did this all kick off?
Construction started back in 2022, and they're saying it'll be all done by 2028.
6 years to build 7 districts. That's moving right along.
They're not wasting any time.
I can see that. But let's step back a sec, you know, and think about the bigger picture here. Because Manila is already a pretty dense city, right?
Super dense.
So what happens when you suddenly drop in all this extra space? What kind of impact does that have?
Well, on the one hand, you've got, like, the economic boom. Think about all the new jobs that are going to be created, the businesses that are going to open up, the boost to the local economy. I mean, Pasay Harbor City alone is supposed to create over 1 million jobs.
Yeah.
That's massive. That's going to have ripple effects throughout the whole region, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then you've got the potential tax revenue for the city and the national government. Billions of dollars, potentially. And that money can be used for, you know, for schools, for infrastructure, for all kinds of public services.
So on paper, it sounds like, you know, win-win-win. More space, more jobs, more money for the city. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the potential downsides.
Totally agree. Specifically, the environmental impact. I mean, we're talking about fundamentally changing the coastline. That can't be good for the ecosystem, right?
Definitely a huge concern. A lot of environmental groups are speaking out, worried about what these projects might do to Manila Bay.
What are they saying specifically? What are they worried about?
A lot of things. Damage to marine life, increased risk of flooding. They're even worried about, like, displacing communities that depend on the bay for their livelihoods.
So can you break that down for us a little? What kind of damage are we talking about when it comes to, the marine life?
Well, one big thing is the loss of habitats, like mangroves and mudflats. They're really crucial for all kinds of fish and other marine life, but they get destroyed when you reclaim the land.
Yeah, mangroves are like those forests that grow right in the water, right?
Exactly. And they act as natural filters. They help clean the water. They protect the coast from storms. Super important. And mudflats, they might not look like much, but they're actually really rich ecosystems too. Tons of little critters live in those mudflats, and they're a major food source for birds.
Right. I never thought about it like that. So we're losing all of that when we build on these areas.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And what about the flooding? How would these projects make that worse?
Well, when you reclaim land, you change the way the water flows, right? And that can lead to more runoff, more erosion. And with climate change and rising sea levels, building on this newly reclaimed land, it's kind of like building in a high-risk flood zone.
It's like setting yourself up for trouble down the line.
Yeah, basically.
So how are the developers addressing these concerns? Are they taking any steps to minimize the environmental impact?
Well, both projects do say they're incorporating what they're calling blue and green infrastructure.
Blue and green. What does that even mean?
Yeah. It's basically a way of saying that they're going to, design the projects in a way that's more in tune with nature. So things like creating artificial waterways to help the water flow more naturally and adding lots of green spaces, parks, and gardens to try and make up for the habitat loss.
Okay. That sounds, I guess that sounds good in theory, but is it enough? Can you really offset the impact of, filling in hundreds of hectares of bay just by planting some trees?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, we won't know for sure until we see how these projects play out over the long term.
It's a tricky situation. I mean, you've got the economic potential on the one hand, and then the environmental concerns on the other. It's like, how do you find that balance?
It's something that cities all over the world are trying to figure out, right? How do we grow and develop without destroying our environment in the process?
Yeah, that's the big challenge of our time, I think. So what do you think, Andrea? What are some of the keys to finding that balance?
Well, I think it starts with really careful planning, right?
Yeah.
Doing thorough environmental assessments before you even start building anything. And then, getting input from the community, making sure that the people who live in these areas have a say in what's happening.
Absolutely. It can't just be top-down decision-making.
Right. And then I think we have to be willing to, maybe to scale back sometimes, to say no to certain projects if the environmental risks are just too high. It's about thinking long term, thinking about the future, not just the immediate profits.
I couldn't agree more. We can't just keep kicking the can down the road when it comes to the environment. So for all you urban explorers out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about these mega projects in Manila Bay? How would you approach a situation like this? Hit us up on social media. Let us know.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
All right, everyone. Well, that's going to do it for this discourse on Manila Bay's transformation.
That's definitely a lot to think about.
For sure. And we'll be back next time with another deep dive into a whole different urban challenge. We'll keep you posted on the topic, but until then, keep exploring.
See you soon.
See ya.